Right then, in the world of football, €100 million investments are flying around left, right, and centre. Transfer records are being smashed constantly, and expectations are absolutely through the roof. But what really happens after all that fuss? A new signing, eh? It always promises something fresh, doesn't it? Gets the fans buzzing, creates a real stir. But let's be honest, new doesn't always mean happy days. Some transfers you just know from the moment the ink dries on the contract that it's all going to go a bit pear-shaped. Now, we're not talking about bad or untalented players today, mind. Oh no, we're shining a spotlight on those massive signings who simply couldn't handle the pressure of the huge expectations and just popped like a balloon. So go on, grab yourself a cold drink, hit that subscribe button, lean back, and let's get stuck in. Paul Pogba is definitely one of those players who wasted his talent. In 2016, at just 23, he transferred from Juventus to Manchester United for a record €105 million fee, becoming the most expensive footballer at the time. He was a two-way player, 1.90 meters tall, athletic, and incredibly strong. Beyond these impressive physical attributes, his ball control, long-range shots, and especially his long passing ability were truly exceptional. However, Pogba had some weaknesses that weren't as noticeable during his time at Juventus. Some team structures allow players to perform beyond their true potential. When you have on-field leaders like Andrea Pirlo, Arturo Vidal, Claudio Marchisio, and defenders like Leonardo Bonucci and Giorgio Chiellini, with Gianluigi Buffon in goal, a talented player like Pogba could shine simply by playing his role, without taking on more responsibility than he could handle. But at Manchester United, the club where he came through the academy and returned for a record fee, expectations were very different. Everyone now expected him to take the lead and embody the club. Pogba, though, was quite distant from concepts like leadership. He seemed to prefer the spotlight. It felt like he cared more about his social media follower count than winning matches. Paul's success on social media is undeniable. However, his on-field performance during his time at Manchester was inconsistent and mediocre. He gradually lost his physical fitness and became a player plagued by chronic injuries. Throughout his 6 seasons at United, he was remembered more for his arguments with Jose Mourinho, his constantly changing hairstyles, and his quirky dances than for his achievements. Consequently, in the summer of 2022, just as he had arrived 6 years prior, he left the club without earning them a single penny. You know how some transfers are clearly flops the moment the ink dries on the contract? Well, Jack Grealish's transfer was one of them. Grealish, who came through the Aston Villa Academy, had a slow but steady rise during his 8 years as a first-team player there. He cemented his place in the starting 11, became team captain, and eventually earned his national cap. By 2020, he was one of the most important English players in the Premier League. His name was always near the top in metrics like shot and goal creation, and he was the most fouled player in the league. I think Grealish's dilemma started right there. He was everything to Villa. Every ball went through him, he made every decision. Perhaps we should have been a bit more cautious about a player who touched the ball so much, dominating certain statistics. What's more, Grealish was a marketing dream. With his hair, low socks, and spectacular moves, he was one of the most stylish English players since David Beckham. Born in Birmingham and known for his hairstyle, he was even dubbed Peaky Jack after the characters from Peaky Blinders. In the summer of 2021, Manchester City paid €117 million to make Peaky Jack the most expensive English player in history. That's when Grealish's shine really began to fade. He was used to having every touch at Villa, but in Pep's team, where the ball is cherished, he couldn't expect the same privileges. Over time, he lost his confidence and became an ordinary player, shying away from risks. His playing time dwindled and he was pushed out of the rotation. Grealish finished the entire last season with just 1 goal and 1 assist in the league, and wasn't even included in the Club World Cup squad. Beyond the record transfer fee, his colossal contract of over £15 million a year, and allegations of an alcohol problem mean Grealish is now a player Manchester City struggles even to offload. Darwin Núñez, Liverpool's high-cost transfer fiasco. Darwin Núñez stands out as a high-risk gamble in Liverpool's transfer history, one that coincided with the brief departure of the club's renowned data guru, Michael Edwards. It seems sometimes you only truly grasp the value of such key figures when mistakes are made. Yes, Núñez's final season at Benfica was certainly brilliant. However, the Reds acted hastily, basing their decision on just that one season's performance, and ended up paying far more than Darwin Núñez was worth. We're talking about a colossal €85 million transfer fee, with potential bonuses pushing it up to €100 million. For Darwin to justify that investment, he'd have needed to score at least 30 goals every season, and sadly, he just couldn't meet those expectations. While he showed flashes of promise under Jurgen Klopp, his impact on the pitch effectively vanished with Arne Slot's arrival. Under this immense pressure, Núñez lost his confidence, and after missed goals and turnovers, he began to mentally disconnect from the game. The new coach, Slot, didn't shy away from openly criticizing him, stating, "If there's one thing I can't accept, it's my player not trying hard enough." At this point, Núñez's time at Liverpool seems to be drawing to a close, and it's clear as day that no other club will be paying such exorbitant fees for him again. Núñez's situation is another example of a player whose price was inflated simply because of the buyer's transfer history. Yes, when a regular club comes calling for a player, the price is one thing, but when a financial powerhouse like Paris Saint-Germain enters the fray, it jumps to a completely different level. This is, in fact, a vicious cycle. As long as Paris Saint-Germain and similarly wealthy clubs continue to pay these exorbitant sums, selling clubs will continue to demand high prices. In other words, these clubs have no real right to complain about market prices, because they themselves are the ones driving the market to this point. Another striking example of Chelsea's transfers during the new ownership era, one that could be described as an uncontrolled risk, was the signing of Mykhailo Mudryk. Transferred from Shakhtar Donetsk for €70 million plus add-ons, Mudryk was, in essence, the victim of immense hype following a brief period of brilliance. However, he never managed to deliver the top-tier performance expected of him on the pitch. In addition to his adaptation issues and ineffectiveness on the field after his transfer, he also found himself in the spotlight due to serious allegations, including forbidden substance use. This situation turned Mudryk into not just a costly transfer for Chelsea, but also a difficult problem to manage. Despite the high transfer fee, Chelsea's inability to get the expected contribution from him became one of the main reasons why this transfer landed in the flop category. Romelu Lukaku's transfer looked perfect on paper but turned into an absolute disaster on the green pitch. In the 2020-2021 season, he scored 24 goals in Serie A, leading Inter to their first championship in 11 years. At that time, everyone agreed he was among the top 5 or 6 strikers in the world. That summer, Chelsea, already reigning Champions League winners, brought Lukaku back to London for a colossal fee of €113 million, convinced he would solve all their goal-scoring woes. However, Lukaku's second stint in London was rocky from the very beginning. Chelsea's playing system wasn't to Lukaku's liking, and the Belgian star didn't hesitate to express his dissatisfaction even during the second international break of the season. In an interview with Sky Italia, he openly stated, "I'm not happy here, I miss Inter," immediately putting himself at odds with both the fans and manager Thomas Tuchel. After that interview, Lukaku's credit quickly ran out. He needed to fight for his place in the team, but neither his morale nor his physical condition was up to it. Romelu has always been prone to gaining weight. In Tuchel's fast-paced, dynamic, and fluid game, Lukaku was clumsy and lacked tempo. His minutes dwindled, his body fat increased, his finishing touch dulled, and his confidence plummeted. In that single season, he managed to score only 8 goals in the Premier League. Lukaku's unexpected downfall hit Chelsea hard, not just sportingly but also financially. The €113 million investment turned into one of the club's biggest regrets in its history. After 2 separate loan spells at Inter and Roma, he was eventually sold to Napoli for €30 million, a move driven by the cut-your-losses mentality. This transfer became a bitter testament that high transfer fees don't always guarantee the expected returns. Manchester United certainly a strong contender in the flop transfer stakes. Erik ten Hag's attempt to build a squad from Eredivisie signings brought perhaps their biggest blunder, Antony. When it comes to a player's price tag, a few factors come into play. For instance, the buyer. If clubs like Chelsea or Manchester United are consistently willing to pay over the odds, the price automatically inflates for their next targets. These teams are in effect inadvertently driving up the market for the very players they want to buy. Another undeniable factor is the market the player comes from. If you're sitting down with a club like Ajax, renowned for developing and selling young talent, negotiations are bound to start at sky-high figures. And if that player has also represented the Brazilian national team, well then the price just rockets even further. Put all these factors together and a player like Antony, who hadn't truly proven himself, can still command a €95 million transfer fee. It was clear from the start that this price was far from reasonable. However, Antony's on-field struggles weren't just down to the pressure of that hefty price tag. The Brazilian winger attributed his poor form to personal issues. In interviews and on social media, he spoke about how family matters and turmoil in his private life negatively impacted his football. He even admitted that mental struggles caused him to completely lose focus on the pitch. Of course, he's hardly going to say, "I'm just not a good player," is he? All jokes aside, while he did manage to regain some form during a brief loan spell at Betis, it still seems almost impossible for him to ever justify that €95 million investment. To be honest, most of Manchester United's transfers over the last decade could make this list. Naturally, the most expensive ones stand out the most. Jadon Sancho, who came through Manchester City's academy, moved to Germany at a young age thanks to Borussia Dortmund's smart transfer strategy. There, he got regular playing time, developed, and flourished. 4 years later, his quick feet, creative playing style, and goal-scoring potential made him a target for Premier League clubs. Manchester United was the most eager to sign him, and the transfer went through for a whopping €85 million. However, Sancho couldn't carry the brilliance he showed in the Bundesliga over to England. His clashes with manager Erik certainly didn't make things easier. The Dutch coach publicly voiced his dissatisfaction with the player's lack of effort in training. Sancho in turn openly defied his coach on social media, claiming he was being made a scapegoat. This led to Sancho being benched. Whether Ten Hag was right or wrong is another matter, but I think in this day and age, sidelining and devaluing a player, especially one you paid €85 million for, is a rather outdated method. This was a crisis poorly managed by both the coach and the club. As a last resort, United loaned Sancho to Chelsea with a €30 million buy option. But the player failed to find his form there either, and Chelsea didn't exercise the option. 3 years on from his transfer, Jadon hasn't developed nor found consistency. Manchester United still doesn't know what to do with him. Sancho has turned into an €85 million problem for the club. Alright, in this part of our flop transfer series, we've seen that big money doesn't always guarantee big success in football. Players like Pogba, Grealish, Antony, Lukaku, and Núñez, despite their potential, simply couldn't live up to expectations. High transfer fee pressure, squad unsuitability, or injuries negatively impacted these players' careers. Millions of euros invested turned into financial disappointments for the clubs and career setbacks for the players. So what does all this tell us? Perhaps that football isn't just a game of talent and money. Sometimes the right system and mental strength are worth far more than astronomical transfer fees. Who do you think was the biggest flop transfer on this list? Let us know in the comments. See you next time.